Hey, how's it going YouTube? I have just completed I Am Setsuna, and if you are into JRPGs then you should have heard this game, or maybe you have already bought it and started playing. As always, I like to give you guys an idea of how much time I've spent on the game, and some general background before getting into the review, so you can judge how biased I am and how valid you think my review will be for you. I've spent about 25 to 30 hours playing the game, and I am currently working on that shiny platinum trophy. This game is developed by Tokyo RPG Factory and is published by Square Enix. This game's inspiration came from old school RPGs such as Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger, which is one of my all-time favorites. So I was really excited to try this out, and here's what I think. Also, spoiler alert. I'll first talk about the story, since that is one of the two most important components of a JRPG for me. I'm actually on the fence about the story. The devs did a lot of things I liked about the story, but they equally did a lot of things I hated. The biggest problem with the story is that the premise makes no sense, even for a JRPG. Ender is a mercenary tasked to killing Setsuna, who is the most important protagonist in the game. When you are given the option to do so, you take a swing at her, but your sword just ends up at the edge of her throat. No, this is not how it's supposed to play out. You're a mercenary, and you should do your job. There's no concrete evidence on Ender's character, but inferences can be made based on the introduction mission. He was born into a mercenary tribe and is known to take any job. There was no reason why he should have hesitated, and Setsuna should have died. The only reason I could think of was that he was captivated by her beauty, but he has a cold personality. This was something that was brought up a lot throughout the game. The love theory seems to be the only logical explanation, but I really have to stretch it since Setsuna shows no intimate feelings for Ender, but some of Ender's positive supporting lines can be interpreted as such. But it would also make sense for them not to be. The rest of the story is the standard JRPG save the world plot, which you may or may not be tired of. I was fine with it since I liked most of the characters and the journey. The main story itself and the characters definitely drew inspirations from Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger by sharing very similar concepts. The main story is about a journey a person makes in order to sacrifice herself in order to suppress the monsters in the world every X amount of years. This is very similar to the story in Final Fantasy X, where every 10 years Sin must be defeated, and they're both called pilgrimages. For the characters, it is easy to see where some of them drew inspiration from. Ender is inspired by Chrono, Reaper or Fide is inspired by Magus, which are characters from Chrono Trigger. Nider is inspired by Auron from Final Fantasy X. Setsuna also shares a really close resemblance to Colette from Tales of Symphonia. Their weapons are the same, and also their journey and role closely resemble each other, where they have to sacrifice themselves in order to save the world. The other characters might have drawn inspirations from somewhere, but they don't remind me of anyone. I found Kerr and Julianne's characters and backstory to be the most interesting, and was one of the saving graces. I was really into what happened to Julianne and was pretty hooked on her story. Kerr's story wasn't as interesting as Julianne's in my opinion, but offered uniqueness to a cast that I've seen before. The story is somewhat predictable and very linear, but they added their own elements to the story to make it differ from its inspirations. Overall, I think the story is decent, like that C- 10-page English paper you wrote the night before. I don't want you to leave thinking that the story is complete garbage, but I also don't want you to get your hopes up thinking the story is one of the best stories you've ever heard. I've said a lot of negative things about the story, but there were definitely some good moments as well, where I was interested in learning about a character's backstory. The second most important component of a JRPG is its gameplay. Combat is what I expected of this game for the most part. For other people who have played Chrono Trigger, it's obvious that they took their battle system, but they improved on it. It actually works really well for what it is. For those who are unfamiliar with Chrono Trigger's battle system, it's the standard active time battle system. Players must wait for a bar to fill up before a character can act. Once a character can act, they can attack, use special skills, or perform a combination skill with up to 2 other party members. Battles are not random, but occur when a player is seen or touches an enemy. Here is where I Am Setsuna goes beyond the basic battle system. First, they added a momentum mechanic which can occur whenever a character acts. Each character has an SP bar that fills up when their ATB bar is full, or when they take an action. It maxes out at 3 charges and allows a character to spend a charge to use momentum, which grants bonuses such as additional damage, elemental damage, buffs or debuffs. Each skill can also be enhanced via fluxation, which is determined by the accessory that is equipped. Fluxation gives you additional bonuses. There are a lot of skills and just as many ways to customize the character the way you like. This level of complexity allows you to change characters the way you want them to, instead of following an auto level up curve where characters are stuck in their default roles. However, skills and stats on level up are static, so there is that one restriction. I Am Setsuna's combat system is the best part of the game for me once I understood how it all worked. It really makes the game more interesting, testing out different skills and setups while progressing in the story and post-game. The battle system is great, and it really lifts this game up, but there are a few story gameplay elements that I strongly dislike. For one, it seems that choices do not matter, even though they are presented to the player frequently. If a player chooses a negative choice, then the game will automatically fix it, such as an example I gave when talking about the premise of the story. However, I have not yet verified this since I turned into a good guy pretty early on. My next playthrough will probably be my asshole playthrough where I just be as difficult as possible to test my theory. My other issue with the story gameplay is that it's very linear and short. There aren't many places to visit or side quests which can be used to develop more of the side stories, such as Julianne's Knights or Kerr's Village. I think this is a missed opportunity and could have been used to patch up some of the story as well as allowing the player to better connect to all the characters in the party. I know I said the two most important components of a JRPG are its gameplay and story, but man, music can also make or break a game. The music in this game are all piano pieces composed by Tomoki Miyoshi, who is, by the way, an amazing composer. I mean, saying the music is great and fitting does not do it justice at all. I believe what he did here would have been impossible have I not played I Am Setsuna. I would have thought the whole soundtrack as a piano solo would have been crazy boring. But it's the total opposite. The music works so well together, and I think it captivates the very essence of this game. Every snowy setting, every piano piece accompanied by it worked so well together, it's giving me the chills writing or thinking about it. Or maybe it's just my air conditioning. The soundtrack of this game is nothing short of amazing and what I would expect and hope for in a JRPG. Bravo. The graphics are nothing to brag about, and are actually quite unimpressive. It's pretty simple and it looks like it should have been released on a 3DS. I like the style of the assets and textures used for level and world design, but there's nothing really to say here. Graphics was not something that was emphasized on this type of game, and I was really not expecting anything fancy. The UI was very simple and it worked well. I just didn't like the background of the design. Since the game reminds me a lot of Chrono Trigger, I was actually very disappointed I could not change the color or the style of the UI. So now the big question is this game worth it? Well, I actually enjoyed playing through the game, and I would actually recommend it to people who are or would be interested in a modern old school JRPG. The premise of the story is hard to believe, the characters may be a little too similar to their inspirations, and the story itself is pretty generic like all other JRPGs, but I still enjoyed the game. I think despite all this, Tokyo RPG Factory added enough uniqueness to the characters and story where they were able to take their game and make it their own. As I said before, some of the characters' backstories were actually really interesting to me, and I enjoyed the journey the whole way. The game's main story is not very long, but playing it a few hours a day should last a person a good week or two. Is it worth $40? I think if it was physically released, I wouldn't have mind paying $40 for it. But since it's digital, it leaves me wanting more for my purchase. Not having a disc and case really makes me feel cheated, but if you're a person who buys digital anyway, then I think it's a fair price since standard PS4 games are $60. If you love games like Chrono Trigger and the old school Final Fantasy games, then I would recommend checking this game out. I think Tokyo RPG didn't quite hit the stride I was hoping they would, but this game is by no means a disappointment. If your wallet allows for you to blow $40 on a game, then I think this is a good choice for satisfying that old school JRPG itch. Hey guys, I hope this review was helpful, and if you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos. If you want to check out some of my other game reviews, there is my Star Ocean review, which I did about a few weeks ago, which is on the video, so just click on that video button and it'll take you there. Thank you guys for watching.